Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am Mary Charlotte Grayson, Director of Events for the National Indian Gaming Association. Thank you so much for joining us today for our exciting and informative webcast series, Tribal Gaming and the New Normal, with co-hosts Victor Rocha and Jason Giles. Today's discussion will focus on business during a pandemic, as well as a discussion over our associate member program. Before we introduce the presenters, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. All audience members are on listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and do encourage you to participate by using the question panel. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar, and you will receive an email with a copy of the recording so that you may listen and refer back to it any time. This webinar, as well as others in our series, will also be made available on our website, indiangamingtradeshow.com, under the Education tab in the coming weeks. Now, without further delay, let me introduce Victor, Conference Chairman with the National Indian Gaming Association and editor of Pechanga.net, and Jason Giles, our Executive Director. Victor, take it away.
Thank you, Mary Charlotte. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles. He's the Executive Director of the National Gaming Association, and this is the new normal. I want to welcome everyone. It's been another interesting week. You know, we have the elections coming down to the wire and all that insanity. You know, it's a real shame that we're not getting more certainty, but in chaos there's opportunity, you know, and so I feel, and so welcome. I'd like to welcome our guests. Jason, how you doing, brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure am.
There you are.
Well,
there you
we're
are.
trying to weather the storm, the third storm.
Hey, you guys got another storm over there. Where are you at?
The third COVID storm.
Wow. It's that, and you know what? Yeah, you know what, Jason? I saw that this morning too. You know what I mean? That was like the top thing on the Pechanga.net website is that we're now looking at a third wave of the coronavirus, and that's you know. I don't think there's any like surfing, and I think Russ, you're from the beach area. There's no end to those sets of waves that can come in too. So just because there's a third wave doesn't mean there's not going to be a fourth wave, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, but before again, I'd like to introduce you to our guests. We have our dear friend Christie Eickelman. She's the Vice President of Global Marketing for Gaming Laboratories International, or GLA, as we all know. Our dear friend Russ Witt, Director of Central Determinate Gaming for Incredible Technologies. Dike Bacon, Principal from HBG Design, which is a very well and known architectural firm. And our friend Christopher Georgicus, right? Georgicus. Like we were saying, it sounded like Spartacus, but Georgicus, which is, and he's the president of and CEO of Golf Public. Now, Chris, I was at your website, and you guys do, you guys have many, you guys do PR, but you do crisis management and stuff like that. So in the middle of the pandemic, what do you tell your customers and stuff like that to make people feel, you know, normal, you know? What have you been telling?
Victor, there's, of course, normality isn't even the question, right? But,
right.
You know, we've worked with a number of clients, including tribal gaming clients, you know, throughout all of this. As I'm from Minnesota, most of our work is for Minnesota tribes, although we do work for others around the country as well. And in Minnesota, the pandemic really hit in mid-March, and we worked with our tribal clients to you know, shut down their casinos. It was a scary time for everybody. But what we told them, and we do with all of our clients who are looking for assistance in communicating during a time of crisis, is, you know, number one, you've got to be genuine. You've got to be honest with people. You have to share as much information as you reasonably can with all of your key stakeholders. And of course, stakeholders start with, you know, employees, and they include guests, and they include all of the others in the local community, you know, where tribal casinos are located. So, and I think we've seen throughout the last 7 months, you know, throughout the country, that tribes have been successful to the extent that they've been really open with their guest base and with their employees and everybody else who is part of their circle of influence.
Well, that really seems to be the message that everyone wants to get out, that listen, we're doing everything that we humanly can to create a safe space for you to come back. And I think, as we know now, getting back to this normality in life, whether it be taking our kids to school or, watching a football game, that's what this whole thing has been about. These bubbles is trying to make us feel normal again, and yet we have a third wave crashing on our shore again. You know what I mean? And that's the bizarreness of it all, is that we're still trying to do business during the pandemic, and yet we are in businesses happening, and that's what's important. Russ, welcome. Good morning. You said you're in Vegas, right?
I am, sir. Yep.
Well, you're a New Jersey guy. What are you doing in Vegas, man?
I live in Vegas now full time. So.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how's the surfing in Vegas?
It's a little dry. It's a little dry.
Yeah.
On the East Coast. Yeah.
So what exit are you?
I'm actually 63. You're
63.
Yeah.
I think that was my old exit, actually, when I lived in New Jersey. I think my old exit was 63. Russ, I'm first of all, welcome, and I'm really glad that you're on the program, because when I think about business and when I think about getting back to normal, you're one of those people that I think about, because you're a salesman. It's your job to go and knock on doors. It's your guys. Part of your life and your routine is the business lunch and the business dinner, and we've all, we're all used to that lifestyle. I mean, I was just telling someone the other day about this incredible lifestyle that we all have. And, I see Christie in London, I see you and, all over the world. And it's just an incredible industry that has just come grinding to a halt. So what does the new normal in business look like for you nowadays? What does a salesman, a real meat and potato type of salesman, what are you doing during this industry now?
Well, I agree, being an extreme extrovert like you, it's, we're kind of in recovery right now, so you take the personal interactions where you can get them. Obviously we've moved, a fair number of the meetings online. So, we've worked to kind of hone that message and be able to still, conduct business and present to our customers. Personally, with Incredible, we've been lucky enough to, actually be in front of customers in Washington State, which, kind of through this COVID pandemic has been a very bright spot for Indian country. Business is flourishing in Washington. Class 2 that we're working on in Washington now has been embraced up there with the recent approvals of being able to commingle the VLT and Class 2 games in each location. Tribes in Washington are clamoring to bring in Class 2, which has been fantastic. And, Victor, you've kind of led that charge and carried that water about, how Class 2 is going to really help with the, the economic recovery in Indian country. We've talked about it on other webinars we've done through NIGA and BMM about that. And it truly is happening. It's happening in a market like Washington. And we're starting to see those effects in a market like California. And I think, when you look at these economic recoveries, the last thing you want to do is be able to part with any revenue, that you're generating, and Class 2 allows you to keep that revenue. So our focus has been on Class 2. It was a very important part of our strategy prior to the pandemic. It's become the most important part of our strategy. We're a smaller organization, but Elaine and Richard are fantastic to work for. They didn't lay anybody off. We didn't furlough anybody. We doubled down on our development to be able to make sure that we bring even more product and diversity to our Class 2 portfolio, for our customers. So that's really.
But even when you have a product, and what Russ and I had been talking about, when this pandemic, when this whole thing happened and the world shut down and the tribes started opening up again, it seemed to me like a no-brainer that the tribes were going to go to Class 2. You know what I mean? Class 2 is you get uncompacted or non-compacted, I should say, and it generates the type of revenue the tribes need in Oklahoma and California and other places where it's very important. But even when you have a product like that, how has it changed the way you do? Are you doing face-to-face? Are Zoom calls an effective substitute? Or are you doing like John Cusack and Say Anything? You just have like a slot machine over your head, you know, playing Peter Gabriel, is that type of thing? I mean, what are you doing?
I think it's, I mean, you know, for some of our markets, you know, it's a hybrid, you know, some, you know, folks are being able to do some, you know, travel kind of in their territory. So it's more, you know, drivable, seeing customers. And I think, you know, we're the customers that aren't comfortable with in-face meetings, you know, we've pivoted to Zoom or Teams or, you know, so we really kind of honed our message that way. So I think the biggest thing is, you know, for us is we've been very mindful of our customers. And, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, they're comfortable. So if they're comfortable with in-person meetings, we'll go, you know, we'll follow all the protocols. We'll do everything that's required of each location. And it does vary a bit. And, you know, and we recognize that, and we want to make sure that that's what we're doing. For the ones that don't want to meet in person, you know, we found that the Zoom calls and the virtual presentations have been very effective. So we're trying to adapt to what the customers are comfortable with. And I mean, I think that's pretty much, you know, what you would see across this side of the industry.
That's interesting. Has anybody asked you to be tested yet?
Nobody has asked us to be tested, but, you know, I would say the facilities that we've actually physically gone into, you know, from a tribal gaming perspective, they probably have some of the most robust, you know, testing procedures as you come in. So they're checking your temperature, you know, they're checking your license, they're taking information, they're asking some health questions. So there is, you know, a pretty robust protocol as you know, enter into these facilities, and it's, you know, masks. We've been asked to put gloves on in certain locations, gloves and masks. So whatever the protocol is, you know, we follow, and we're happy to follow it. And we're just, you know, really lucky, and, you know, and we're very appreciative of, you know, being able to conduct business in this time.
Christie, how does someone like, I mean, for you, it shouldn't be so hard when you guys are doing testing and stuff like that. You know, over the weekend, they showed a concert they did, it might've been Oklahoma, and it was, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The band all were in bubbles, and the audiences were all in bubbles, and everyone was individually in bubbles. And it was actually pretty funny watching hundreds of people in these blow up bubbles. And, you know, this isn't the future of gaming, Christie, is it?
No, like over the top of them, or like wearing them like you're like sumo wrestling, that type
exactly,
of thing.
Exactly, those big round balls. Everyone in the band were all inside their bubbles, and then the audience were all inside bubbles. And it looked pretty silly. It looks pretty silly, and it looked pretty fun too.
So, Dike, how do you build that in?
Yeah, Dike, are you planning bigger doorways, right?
I was gonna say, how's that gonna go?
We'll bounce off of each other.
Exactly.
Well, you know, my point is, you know, how has business changed for you during the pandemic?
So for us, right when this all started, we historically have our regulators roundtable in March. So we were very lucky that we got that in on the 4th and 5th, which is just crazy to believe that.
I remember.
200 and some people in a room, and then at the end of the month we locked down. But we're very lucky that our buildings are large enough where our people can work inside of our buildings and be very social distanced. With our customers, it's all about R&D and submitting those games and doing it in a safe environment. And that's exactly what we were able to do. And with the 3 offices in the United States, it's easier for us to deploy people if there's something that needs to be done in the field, geo-testing, any of that type of thing. But for us, it was more focus on our employees, make sure our employees are safe, make sure all of that is, I mean, it kind of goes back to what Russ said. You've got to take care of your own house, and we've always done that. And then we've always taken care of our customers. So it's checking in on them, making sure they're okay, finding out what changes are being made, where we need to assist or help or lift them up in any way. What I found was really interesting is when this first started happening, we're very involved with the National Tribal Gaming Regulators, and they started a women's group. And so we would meet every week and kind of do a sanity check. which was very nice, so that you got to see inside of their world. So some of them were in, and some of them were working from home, and some of them didn't know when they were going back to work. So we ran the gamut. And I thought that was very, very important. It was that checking in, that having that point of every region being involved, because everybody was in a different place. So that was really important along the way with that group.
Yeah, that's, that does sound like that would be important, making sure that everyone, it's like holding each other's hands through this
Exactly.
storm. We're tying you all to the mast. This is going to get a little rocky. You know what I mean? It's so, Dike, in your job as an architect, aren't you glad you designed all those high ceilings in the casinos and the restaurants and stuff like that?
Interestingly, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, a client, the other day about laughing about us designing facilities for Easter Sunday. And meaning we typically design for probably more capacity than is needed, but it's better to have that capacity, certainly in times like this, to be able to expand and use square footage and use program differently. It's, we constantly get a lot of questions about the impact on design, the impact on facility plans going forward. And it's just, nobody knows right now. And my hat's off to the vast majority of operators who have taken an exceedingly challenging set of circumstances, obviously being closed for months and then reopening, being closed for months and having to bring staff back, but implementing safety protocols, implementing sanitation protocols, implementing distancing protocols, and trying to keep or bring casino business back to some measure of a pre-COVID condition. And it's really been challenging, but I can say from the standpoint of a lot of our clients, a lot of feedback that we've been getting, business is pretty good. I think the rest of you all on this call would probably say the same thing. We're hearing there's certainly markets that are challenged, markets that for various reasons, if they're fly-in markets and not drive-in markets, they're challenged. But business conditions are pretty good. But some of the big questions going forward, obviously, I think you mentioned the third wave. This isn't going away. So, what's a long-term impact going to be? What are long-term solutions going to be to continue to expand business, to try to get back to some measure of resort operations, which is a multifaceted, not just casino gaming, but resort operations that, create a safe environment and provide our customers with a safe and healthy environment. And so we're working on a lot of different solutions for that, Victor. So.
Do you think that, first of all, have your customers come back and ask for, they come back to the drawing board? Are they, one of the things I think are really interesting, they're operating on half capacity on the hotels. Has there been has the hotel cooled a little bit, or is it defining changes? We had a conversation the other day and we talked about how, for the hotels to exist, people are going to need a lot more frictionless environment, less touch. We talked about in Europe when you go to those bathrooms and you walk out and the whole thing is fumigated and it's a whole process before the next person. Is that what the hotel room of the future is going to look like? It's going to be a little droid will come in and just shoot up a little bomb and.
It's probably, it's a combination of a lot of things. We kind of like to say around here, if you can envision taking a guest room and turning it upside down, everything that'll hit the floor is most likely going to go away. But the
let's
hotel
not
room,
talk about sticky hotel rooms. Let's not talk about sticky hotel rooms, please.
but the guest room
No.
of the guest room of the future will trend more clinical. What we can't forget is the guest room of the future has to be a hospitality experience. And just like the casino, the casino has got to remain an entertainment experience. But the challenge for the design industry is to create a guest room that has more aspects of a clinical nature, not a hospital room, but a clinical nature that is easier to clean. It has safer surfaces. Maybe carpet goes away, and we've got vinyl tile that's easier to clean, possibly draperies. Soft materials will probably ultimately go away. But there's a lot of really interesting new emerging technologies with air treatment, surface materials, antimicrobial surface materials, certainly antimicrobial grout. But I think a challenge going forward is creating guest rooms that are just easier to clean. And out of calamity, there's opportunity. Out of calamity, there oftentimes is innovation. And out of calamity, good things can happen. And I would say I'd offer that there's nothing wrong with having a cleaner casino resort. The vast majority of casino resorts out there do a pretty darn good job pre-COVID, of keeping their facilities clean. But, it's going to be more incumbent going forward, certainly from the standpoint of the health and well-being of staff, but the health and well-being of our customers. It's just a moral obligation. It's a moral obligation, but then it's a business opportunity.
Yeah.
But, easier methods of cleaning and that sort of thing.
It seems like it would bring the cost of the hotel rooms down when you have a lot of these treatments and stuff, and making it less, making people feel safer. And it really is, what's been interesting during all this, and especially, my perspective is I come as a Pechanga tribal member, and I live near my reservation. I live near my casino, so I interacted at my casino all the time still. And, it provided almost like a sanctuary of normality during all this chaos and stuff like this. And you see people, and, I know people want, the free will and stuff like that, but the tribes are saying, listen, it's affecting us more, so masks are mandatory. And so you're seeing the tribes understand they have to go one step forward, because not only are they want to keep their employees safe, which is the number one priority, keep their customers safe, and then keep their tribal members safe. And you've seen this a lot in Indian country, where they will shut a casino down because of the effect that it has on the Indian reservation. And you realize, I haven't seen this anywhere else other than Indian country, and so, tribes are making hard decisions. Now we're going into winter. What do you guys see for the business of gaming going in winter? It seems like we're going to have to hunker down. This is normally our going into our slow period. Well, speaking of us, our routines are broken up. Normally we would be at G2E.
Yeah.
That we would be getting ready for thinking about November. And all right, who's trying to squeeze in a conference now? Where do I got to go now between now and Christmas? So, the winter's coming back. How do you see normality coming back through this? Through the winter.
Sure. Could I just say that,
yeah,
you and Russ and others have commented about the relative success that we've seen in activity back in tribal casinos. And I think that's a wonderful statement of the sort of testament of an endorsement of success that gaming enterprises have shown. They've taken to the nth degree their responsibilities for the safety of their guests, the safety of their employees. As Dike was saying, the operators have been doing quite well. And I think for anyone who visits Indian country and comes to a gaming tribe, they can see in every respect, a real success story. In fact, I think it's one of the great underreported and underappreciated success stories during this entire pandemic, the degree to which tribal nations and gaming tribes in particular have responded. And we're seeing that endorsement by the foot traffic that we see in casinos every day. What does that mean for the future as we have to hunker down, as you said, during the winter? I mean, I think we all may have a little bit different take on that, but up to this point, I think we've seen, our guests are responding and seeing, that sort of oasis or sanctuary that you mentioned. I think your metaphor is an exactly right one. It's given people a chance to feel that there's a little bit of the way things were when they enter a casino, and they can enjoy themselves and feel that there is still a touchstone back to the way things were and the way they hope life will return in the future.
Well, Chris, I'm seeing more and more articles in the newspapers about mental health and stuff like that, and how, when you're in this environment and, every newspaper is dealing with anxiety and the uncertainty with this presidential election and the war on science and health, and, it's created a lot of anxiety in this world. And I see, when you can't go to your restaurant and you can't do that, and the casinos do provide a place where people are, well, here's one place I can go where I do feel safe, and I do feel normal, and I can do something that's normal. I can't go to the movie theaters anymore, and I can't go to the mall. I can't, and so the casinos have provided sanctuaries, and thanks. I use that word because that's how it feels sometimes, But so how can we as an industry work together going forward? We see that business is happening, and and obviously I think it's going to pick up. I think with sports betting on the horizon, I think it's going to allowing a lot of the tribes to reevaluate where we are in this industry and what our priorities are. But how can NIGA help the industry? How can you see us helping you guys? What can we do?
Yeah. Russ, what can we do to push your product for next year? How are you getting product to be seen out there?
That's a good point.
Actually, I just saw that Valerie, hi Val, put out a question about that, about how the product is going to be launched for next year. And I think for the first time in, as long as I've been in this industry, you're not going to see that kind of new wave of innovation that we would be showing at G2E. And Victor, you said, last week we'd have been there. We would have all been in our booths. We would have had tired feet, tired eyes. We would have been talking about our new products. And
5 nights in a row. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? That's what trade shows mean to me.
And, so I think you're looking at, for the first time, and as long as I can remember, you're not going to have that wave of, new cabinets, new innovation, new games, new design, new ancillary products for the industry. And I really think it's going to kind of bump, one full year where, if we do have G2E next year and it follows kind of some of the normal protocol that we're used to, you might see those innovations that companies were holding back this year. And again, that's for many factors, the layoffs and furloughs, obviously, I'm sure affected, some of the innovation and R&D for some companies. But again, the industry is driven by CapEx. So if the CapEx isn't there, there's not a lot of money available to purchase these new products. And, we kind of know how the cycle is driven that way. So 2021 will be an interesting year from that standpoint. So, when you look at other products and ways to kind of hold that, with the CapEx not being there, you're going to look at products, like Class 2 and other things where, you could work with a vendor and, and not have to have that capital outlay and work other, deals along those lines for a daily fee or something along those aspects. So it's going to be an interesting year to see how both the manufacturers and, and the operators kind of work together. And I think with NIGA, Victor, you do an awesome job at, kind of driving that, you want NIGA to be a place where business gets done. I hear you say that all the time in our conversations. And when we do have a trade show, you know, and hopefully we have a normal one in April and can get back to our previous normal. I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, we look at NIGA, you know, to tap our members, you know, and ensure that if we do have a trade show, when we have it, that the people are there, right? That business can be conducted, you know, that you have people that are decision makers and influencers and buyers, and we can get back to that. You know, we can get back to, you know, what NIGA is there for. It's there to conduct business. It's there to, you know, to be educated. It's there to participate in workshops. It's to network, you know, and, you know, the only way that can happen is if we have the operators there, if we have the people from Indian country there to interact with and conduct business with, and, you know, provide insight and education as we normally do. You know, that's really where I think that, you know, we're like you, Jason, Ernie, and the other executive board members, you know, is to really, you know, kind of drive that message home that, you know, NIGA is where business gets done. More business gets done in gaming in Indian country than anywhere else in commercial gaming. And, you know, we need to keep that. And I think that's more important than ever now.
It really is. It really is. And so, you know, what Russ is talking about really is about the basic foundation of business. You know what I mean? How do we interact with our customers? How are we, you know, we relied on these conferences to bring our products to, you know, these halls of commerce, you know, these canyons of commerce of slot machines and rugs and all this stuff. And yet now we're like, you know, how do we move forward in this business? You know, what we're talking about right now in NIGA is, if you look at what's happening, you know, G2E is next week and it's all virtual. And, you know, they really put their best foot forward in getting their products out. But, you know, that is a 2-day thing, you know what I mean? And, you know, you know, it's not the same thing, you know what I mean? It's just really as hard as we try it with virtual, it's not the same thing of feeling and touching and having that tactile experience with slot machines or other stuff. Dike, how is business being affected for you? How do you do face-to-face business? Is it more difficult? Are you still walk the property, obviously, or do you just use Google Maps and just guesstimate it like the rest of us? Is that what you're doing?
We're not traveling as much. We're obviously not going to conferences or trade shows because there are none. We are slowly getting back to face-to-face meetings with clients. This past spring, our meetings with clients have almost been exclusively virtual, but we're getting back into face-to-face meetings with them. We have a number of projects under construction and that are finishing up. So we've had to send CA executives, CA personnel, construction administration personnel to those job sites. That's, you know, all of our personnel wear masks and, you know, follow safety protocols and distancing protocols when they're out in the industry, in the marketplace. And, you know, job sites, I'll compliment a lot of the construction companies. You know, some are doing better jobs than others.
Stopped. Yeah, they never stopped in the pandemic.
They have not stopped, and they, you know, quickly adapted. You know, and it's hard to do on a construction site to distance construction workers. I mean, think about that.
Right.
But we just, you know, we've been making it work, and fortunately for us, technologically, we were able to get up and operational probably in the first few days in early March when everything shut down. So we've got a lot of very sophisticated technological platforms that we can access remotely to do our work. But we've actually interviewed for a couple of projects virtually, which, you know, that's a challenge because we're looking at each other like this, and you don't have an opportunity to establish a relationship with a potential client, you know, as you would in a face-to-face meeting, but you do the best you can. But I'll say that, you know, it's interesting. You talk about a third wave and you know, hunkering down for the wintertime. I kind of wonder if we're not learning, we as a society, we're not learning how to conduct our business, conduct our craft, and to do business, in this kind of environment and do it pretty well. So, yeah, flu season will probably kick in and maybe rates will go back up, but I think we're getting better. You're certainly getting better, with operating casinos and getting better with, running an architecture firm. We're getting better at doing what we're doing. And, the future the time will tell, what the future will hold, but it's just, it's encouraging to us that, we're able to survive. We're able to, I'm not going to say thrive, everybody's challenged right now, but, we're able to function pretty well in delivering our craft. So,
I mean, Christie,
go ahead, Chris.
Oh.
Jason.
Christie, how are you going to handle that? To Dike's point, the longer this goes on, the more we're going to get used to, like, why are we paying rent downtown and why are we fighting traffic? I feel like we might lose that ability to have mass gatherings, and that's going to hurt large segments of our economy, and particularly air travel. I mean, I don't know how air travel is ever going to get back, but what are you seeing on your end, Christie?
So it's interesting because visiting with the trade show producers and the people who do the things behind the scenes, they're really coming up with innovative ways to do this. So in Las Vegas, and Russ and I both live here, I mean, we're kind of at ground zero, right? So, but entertainment is coming back. So Caesars is bringing entertainment back. Venues here can have up to 250 people, social distance. You can do conferences with 1,000 people, but they have guidelines. So they've implemented processes where you have to do a lot of work before the event, during the event, but it's the after. So they have put into place like 60-day contact tracing protocols. So people who were at the event are going to be, I think it goes back to what Dike said, we're going to have to learn how to adapt in business in this environment. And there's a lot of smart people that have really have adapted to the new normal. So you've got larger rooms where you can have less people, and then you can bring people in, but now we're going to use the technology to take things more virtually. So just like the hotel room is going to be more touchless, the casino floor is going to be more touchless, the entertainment venues, parking garages, those types of things where it's going to be a little more absolute user-friendly. And you're going to be able to capture data. So you're going to really be able to follow the people around and keep a closer eye for safety, for anything that you have to do. And Jason, what's really, you talk about traffic. Traffic has increased in Las Vegas because now we've become a drive-in destination. So people are coming from Arizona, California, Utah, as far away as Colorado, or in those, and you can see, for a while there we didn't have traffic jams. We're back to sitting in traffic because more people are going back into the offices, because offices now have figured out how to bring their people back in and bring them back in safely. So, for example, in our building, we have what are called sanitation stations. So you're going to see a lot more of that, which for me, I was that person who already wiped down the airplane seat. I was that person before we even went into this, and I would have wore a mask on an airplane way before COVID, because
Wow.
Like Victor said, we get on these long flights and I think people will be more aware of their surroundings. And it's been nice to see these governors come out and have these press conferences and say, please don't become complacent because we're doing such a great job. So it's that willingness of people to work together and do what we need to do to get back to where we need to. I mean, we're not going to get back to the same normal we were. I mean,
Right.
Life is changing as we know it.
Well, you know, speaking of normal, right now we're in discussions on the NIGA's conference, so we're we're kind of locked into San Diego. And so, in these conversations, as you know, we've been talking about how do we go back to the normal of business, And so for me, you have, like you said, people are finding a way to get back to normal and a way to do business. And I think what we need to do as an organization with NIGA is to create this environment. And by the way, and this is really an opportunity, an amazing opportunity, because with G2E, no G2E, and with no ICE, that gives NIGA a clear shot as a conference to be the first trade show out on the floor and to provide leadership for the rest of the industry. You know what I mean? So I feel what NIGA needs to do is to create this bubble. We do testing. Everyone that goes in this bubble does testing. We're talking to the city of San Diego to be involved. We're going to get California to get involved so that we can have a place where the tribes feel that they can send their slot managers, their floor managers, their casino managers, you know what I mean? And it's going to be business. The education and everything will be online because you know what? That does well online, but commerce still needs to be done in person to really do it. And listen, maybe when we're in outer space and we don't need human contact, and then maybe it'll work that way 100%. But until then, we still need to create this environment, unless maybe we're fooling ourselves. You know what I mean? Maybe it doesn't need to be done. But Russ, what do you think? I mean, if NIGA created a space where everyone is tested, everyone is in this bubble, tested like an NBA bubble, do you think your clients would come? Do you think your company would come?
I definitely think, if anybody's going to be able to do it, it's going to be Indian country. It's going to be NIGA. I mean, everything in gaming, we always talk about it. Tribes lead the way in all of this. They lead the way in, fully integrated resorts. They lead the way in marketing. I mean, tribal gaming outperforms commercial gaming. If anybody's going to be able to figure out a way to put on a show and make it safe and make people feel comfortable, it will be NIGA. It will be Indian country. I think from that standpoint, if enough procedures and protocols are out there, if you reach everybody and the message is clear that way, I think people would come. We're starting to see that. We're starting to see the majority of customers, at least that we're starting to visit, are saying yes. Now we're open to in-person visits, and I think that's going to continue that way as long as there's no other issues that pop up between now and then. But I truly believe that. I think NIGA can be, it can be the prototype for what trade shows can be, and people, as they will look at that and they'll try to mimic what Indian country is leading. So yeah, I think if anybody can do it, it'd be this organization, Victor.
It just seems like a great opportunity for us. We were not going to have this opportunity again. The sales cycles have all been thrown off. The rhythms thrown off. Don't be surprised. There's going to be a lot of gaming babies in 9 months now that the rhythm's off. So sorry, Christie. And by the way, we wanted to point out the fact that we have 1 female and 5 males. That's because 10 males and 1 male wouldn't have been fair, and it still would have been even with Christie too. So this is as many, because 10 guys and 1 Christie would look ridiculous. So that's why we only have 5. You know what I mean? Because she's so. But Christie, now talking about this bubble too, doesn't that seem like it's right now it's just an idea and it's starting to get some legs underneath it, but. It seems like, are we rushing this because we miss our normality? I miss seeing you and all of our friends and in the hallways and with our coffee and stuff. And, so it seems like that seems to be where we have to go, right?
Yeah, and I think circling back to your question about what NIGA and as associate members we have to do, we really need to laser focus in on what they're thinking. So it's reaching out in that communication level that's very important with members, and finding out how they feel, right? It's having those focus groups and those touch points and laser focusing on what their needs are going to be. Because circling back to what Russ said about technology and things like that, there's a lot of suppliers that are are in R&D and they're doing their research and development, and they're adjusting to what they feel is going to be the new normal, which we have a whole new vocabulary now, right? We've got the word
Right.
pivot in our vocabulary. We've made up this whole other dictionary of words. So, but it's that communication level with people. I think that's very, very important, because you need to get that feedback. So tribal gaming has representation from all over the country, and they're all at a different place, and they're all at a different level, and getting all of their voices heard is what I think is going to be very important, as well as the associate members, because they have boots on the ground. Like Russ said, he went to Washington State. He knows what their pain points are, what their successes are. And there's a lot of people out there that I think if we keep those networks open and we keep those lines of communication open, and the board from NIGA, along with Jason's assistants and yours and Mary Charlotte's and Chairman Stevens, the leadership is really important here. And I think moving forward, we can make this work. And I think the bubble thing works, but I don't think tribal gaming is not in a bubble.
Right.
It's a movement, right?
And yeah, and Jason, she goes back to the fundamentals of the thing, and the foundations, which is getting people to the conference and making them feel safe. When we've talked about the idea of maybe we should just start doing super regional shows. Obviously not stepping on the shows of our other associations who we all work so. And by the way, we all work so well together. Anyhow, so we don't want to do anything to start cannibalizing each other. But maybe NIGO could do these super regional shows too. We do the drive-in ones. Is that the answer, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at that, and you've heard everyone on the panel today say that business is surprisingly strong in certain areas, and we would love to, lean on our tribal casinos a little more. And given size limitations, if you're only allowed 1,000 people, that's perfectly set up for a place, Chickasaw, where they can come from Dallas, things like that. And that's definitely an option going forward. And that's what I really worried about is these mass gatherings. Until there's a vaccine, they're just not going to be practicable. And so
can you see the headline, Jason? Gaming, 5,000 people show up for gaming conference.
That's right.
Like that 10,000 person wedding thing in New York the
Yeah.
other day they're talking about.
And so, definitely our tribal casinos, also given the jurisdictional issues, they can they set their own safety limits and everything on the reservation. So as long as the tribe is fine with having a couple hundred people there, then we can make it work and make it work safely. So I think that's what we're looking at. And there may be an opportunity to partner with regional gaming organizations as well to pull those off, because it's all about getting HBG Designs and Russ and all you guys exposure to show what you can provide for folks, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some limitations to the Zoom calls, obviously, and I think, we've adapted and stuff like that. And, Chris, this kind of falls into your wheelhouse, which is about messaging and stuff like that too, and it just seems really important that, people understand that what we're trying to do here is just really bring business back, bring commerce back, you know what I mean? And yet, we still have this constant pressure and anxiety that's still building and which, doesn't help, you know what I mean? And when say, okay, we're going to be doing business over here. And then in the other thing, you're talking about a third wave and what that entitles. And especially if you're Native American, it's just impossible to say you don't know somebody that hasn't been affected by COVID-19, either passing away or getting sick. And in my case, both,
Yeah, Victor, you and Russ talked earlier about, the value of a trade association's conference and a trade show to be able to do commerce. And that's really one of the main reasons that so many of us who are partners of gaming tribes are members of NIGA's associate membership program. The reason we come, or the reason we're exhibitors, and of course some of that stuff is going to have to be adapted, at least for the short term, as Christie and Jason, you suggested a moment ago. But, you know, there are other things in the meantime. And, you know, on the educational side, I mean, you've done a brilliant job over the years of the educational program. And I've enjoyed tuning in almost every week, because I get to see and hear from a lot of experts who I wouldn't normally. You know, if I come to the trade shows as educational day hour, and you're giving Victor, you and Jason and Mary Charlotte an opportunity for us in the industry to be able to drink from the well from a lot of experts across the board. But there are other things too that we can do even right now, and that I think, you know, just to add on to what Christie said a few minutes ago about the value of NIGA to associate members and those of us who are vendors and professional service providers. It's visibility within the industry, to be sure, and that takes a little bit of a hit when you don't have a trade show, but you know, it is helping to sustain this critically important industry that so many of us believe in, have prospered in, and which has just been critical to the success of Indian country in the last several decades. But it's also, you know, it's having that camaraderie. And in addition to this webinar today, I mean, Russ and I and Mary Charlotte and Jason, we hosted an associate member meeting, which is long delayed because of course the cancellation. We did it last week. We're going to have another one. I think we're looking at November 19th. And that's picking up on suggestions that Dike and Christie and others brought forward, which is that we should be talking in a more organized way amongst all of us so that we can share stories, we can share experiences, learn from each other. And that's really what we can all do in the meantime. And when we have that opportunity to come back together, because we are social animals, right? I mean, we
Right.
crave that personal interaction. And when we do, we're going to be even stronger as a result of it.
Well, you know, the thing is, you know, you're absolutely right. What NIGA represents, and what NIGA has always represented, is the voice of Indian country. You know, and what NIGA's secret weapon is Chairman Stevens. You know, there's no one in this industry like him, and has his ability to communicate to the tribes at a grassroots level, and to speak to the heart and from the heart with their people. And I can't do that, nor, you know, that's a very special gift that he has, is his ability to communicate with our people, you know. And so he provides that connection, you know, and it's just such a unique gift that he has, you know, and I'm honored to call him not only just my boss, but my friend. And, you know, that's what he's there for. And it's times like this is when this all comes together for Ernie, where Ernie, you know, and by the way, he's going nuts not being able to travel too. So this is even more difficult. You're talking to a guy with over 3 million air miles, you know, and that's just from last year. No, just kidding. That's over. You know, he's going to be one of those guys when he retires, he's going to have one of his rooms looks like an airplane cockpit. You know what I mean? So he can just go and he feels normal and stuff like that. You know, so he can get his 4 millionth mile when he returns. But, you know, Chairman Stevens knows that, you know, going out there and communicating with the tribes, and, you know, what our future, which is very important about the future of NIGA, is still our ability to stay together. And, you know, NIGA has been so important and so at the front of the CARES Act and working with the other trade organizations. Jason, you know, Jason is always busy. He's probably one of the most humblest people that you're going to meet out there, but he's also one of the most busiest people. And that's because NIGA is taking care of the business. So now we're going to talk about going forward about, you know, we're towards the end of the hour, but, you know, I think what's important is that going forward, NIGA, this conference, whatever this is going to be going forward, it's going to be very important because the timing, we're going to be the first, we're not going to have this opportunity again, you know. So I think that's very important. But like as Jason's saying, I think having smaller, more drive-in regional ones is also going to be important. So NIGA's future is going to be very important. They're going to be leading this, And, you know, as associate members, it's very important that you guys are there with us also, because we can't do this by ourselves, nor have we ever been able to do it by ourselves. You know, it's always been a group effort. So, you know, we're about ready to wrap up, but is there anything you'd like to share with our audience? Christie, I'd like to hear from you first.
I think it's just the communication part is very important. And I think you talking about the associate members is extremely important, because we're very much a part of this. And Chris and Russ are very important in this whole equation, because they're our associate member representatives. So if you have any ideas, please send them over to them, because they're so proactive and they will help in any way. And I think, and he did bring up the fact that we did have a meeting last week. And if you're an associate member and you were not able to get on that call, please try and make the next one, because we need your help and your input on how to move this forward. Because if we do not have this, we have to come up with some other way to still make it a success. So, and that's going to take everyone working together on this. And I think just try and make the next meeting if you're an associate member who's on this call. That's mission critical.
Chris, so if they're not an associate member, what are the advantages of being an associate member for NIGA?
It's, you know, under normal circumstances, it would be access to tribal leaders and decision makers in gaming enterprises. But in the meantime, you know, for anyone who is a vendor who's maybe dialed into this webinar, or, you know, at some point we'll revisit this. The other advantages are it's being part of a family. It's showing support for Indian gaming. It's being able to access educational resources, including this webinar and other things that associate members can share with each other. Those are the key things. And I would just add one other thing, and just thinking, Jason, of all the work that you and others do on Capitol Hill. When we get past these elections, whether it's an lame duck session of Congress or it's the new Congress, you know, as gaming tribes and all of Indian country are going to be looking for opportunities to get from the federal government and live up to its obligations to Indian country. We certainly can, as associate members, lend our voice to those efforts. But Victor, lots of great benefits that come with being an associate member, and we welcome new members and those who have been part of the NIGA family for a long time, sticking with it, and as Christie suggested, helping us strengthen the experience for associate members in the future.
You know, it always feels much more than a trade group. It always feels like family. You know what I mean? It's always been much more than that. So, Russ, before we wrap up today, what words of wisdom do you have to share with our viewers?
I would just kind of echo what Christie and
Can't do that, Russ. Can't have to have your own idea, Russ. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, when we always talk about, what business is going to look like, what the trade show is going to look like, we have an opportunity right now to see what the associate membership group is going to look like right now. We need everybody to come in and bring ideas and try to formulate like what this group is going to be for the future. Education, the webinars, access to information, access to tribal leaders, may be different. It might still be, online, Zoom, it'll be these things. Like, we need everybody to help kind of formulate and create a strategic plan of what that's going to be and what this is going to look like, and where we're going to be able to continue to provide value, and new ways that we're going to be able to provide value, because that's going to change as well. If we're not able to meet in person and be with our family, as everybody says, which I greatly miss, we have to find ways to be effective. We have to find ways to adapt and grow this organization, and be a source of information, be a resource in every way we can. We have every single manufacturer and every single industry represented within the associate group, and it's going to be on us to shape that.
Right. I agree. My dear Mr. Bacon, first of all, question, is that the mighty Mississippi over your shoulder behind you?
Is that?
Yeah, you were talking about surfing, and see, there's a towboat right there, and you can surf on those waves. I mean, literally, they're sometimes 10 feet tall. See that towboat right
I
there?
see that. I see that. Is that a Huck Finn over there? Is that what we're looking
you
at?
know, yeah, that's a big towboat right there. They're just constant going up and down the river. So, parting thoughts, it's going to be okay. I think the industry, the associate membership, NIGA, we've got to continue to look at it. The glass is half full. We're going to do stuff differently. We'll do a trade show differently. I think there was some interesting ideas that came out of the associate member meeting. Certainly maybe smaller shows that would be, there are challenges obviously with flying in and air travel and, the hesitancy of maybe some travel leaders to, get on an airplane and go to a specific location. So, maybe regional events is the way to do it. I can't help but think, I go to the grocery store and, people are on top of each other. And yeah, I mean, here in Tennessee, everybody's wearing a mask. In Memphis, but you follow safety protocols. There are a lot of really cool technologies coming out with temperature check cameras when you walk in. I think there are ways of managing a trade show in a different way, and maybe that's crowd mitigation. Maybe the booths are smaller. They're just ways of doing it differently, but maybe not too much differently than how we're living our lives right now. I mean, you go to Target or go to the grocery store. I mean, we're all kind of on top of each other and nobody's getting sick right and left. So I'm encouraged that, I'm really encouraged that NIGA is looking for creative solutions to hold the trade show next spring. And I think that there's a lot of smart people in the industry, a lot of smart people in the associate membership, certainly a lot of smart people at NIGA's leadership that I think it can be figured out. And I think we can all make it a success. It'll be different, it'll be challenging, but it's incumbent upon those of us in the industry to make it a success. So
I agree 100%. Well, look at this, like at the end of, we're a couple minutes over. Jason, what did you want to wrap this up and end it for us, my friend?
No, I just want to thank the associate members and everyone joining this call. We have great leaders out there in the industry and they've really made Indian gaming what it is. We're going to try to get it back to what it was, but I think Indian gaming's in a better position than commercial gaming to rebound quickly, precisely because of, we don't depend on that heavy air travel for our customer base. So I'm really, we just got to get through this thing and hopefully get that vaccine going. And it just, nobody wants it to be a death sentence. So that vaccine is key. People will be more secure and out and open once, if you can't spread it to your parents and can't spread it to sick members at home. And that's what we're hoping and waiting for, but it just seems like it's a long time coming right now. So, but I look forward to the next associate membership meeting. If you, direct people to Victor and Mary Charlotte, and we'll get them signed up as associate members. And we want to really take that program to a new level and really rethink what associate members can do during this pandemic and into next year to help us out. So.
Yep, I agree. I think this is an opportunity for all of us. And so again, thank you everybody. Thank you, my guests. Thank you, Jason. And all right, let's talk to you guys next week. Thank you. On Thursday too. Talk to everybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.